Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Kaya if you're new here. Welcome back if you're already part of my channel, if you're already subscribed. Welcome back. My previous video that I made just a couple of days ago was about the cost of moving to Italy, and I spoke specifically about the financial costs, so the ongoing and the initial costs of moving overseas to a new country, what you can expect and that kind of thing. But I thought this was kind of an afterthought as well, and I thought to myself, the cost of moving to Italy isn't just purely financial. There's a lot of mental costs as well that come along with moving to a new country and settling into a new life. And I really wanted to talk about those today because it can feel really isolating and really lonely. Moving to a new country, you know, if you don't know anyone, if you don't know any of the language, you're not familiar with the culture, the places, it can be really isolating, and I wanted to make a video that kind of addressed that as well, because it's just as, if not more important than knowing about the financial costs and things like that, because ultimately it's your new life and you want to make the most of your new life and you want to settle into it as smoothly and efficiently as possible. So I wanted to make this video just to let you know that if you have moved to another country and you are feeling alone, that you're not alone, and it's completely normal and natural. And I would argue as well that it's also quite necessary, because it kind of forces you to have a really, like, a shift in your mindset, I suppose. And it always kind of happens like that. You're never gonna move to a completely new place where you don't know anyone and feel instantly comfortable. You kind of have to go through that period of growth to really come out the other side and be stronger and more mentally equipped for what's ahead. So I hope this video can really be helpful. I hope you gain some insight from it and from my experiences. I'm gonna be sharing a couple of stories with you guys as well. So I hope they bring you a little bit of comfort in your discomfort right now. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let's just get straight into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and probably the most obvious thing, is culture clash. Now, culture clash is something that I suppose emerges from a lot of different scenarios. I remember just thinking back to my first day in Milan. I remember I arrived at about 1 p.m. or midday or 1 p.m. or something like that. And I arrived at my Airbnb. I was walking down the street to like find a supermarket or something, and it was literally maybe 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Nothing was open. It was like a little street in the Navigli, Milano Navigli, and nothing was open. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? It was a Sunday afternoon, and I think it was during the period where shops like temporarily closed during that time on a Sunday. And you know, I'd never experienced that before, because in Australia, coming from Australia, I was like so used to things just being open all the time. And you know, we don't have the siesta, or you know, that on a Sunday everything's just kind of open. It might close a little bit earlier in the afternoons, but they don't have that break. And I remember just thinking like, oh my gosh, this would never happen in Australia. And I really had to stop myself and be like, well, you're not in Australia, and this is the complete other side of the world, and their culture and their customs are different, and you just have to accept that. And I remember it was rainy, it was miserable, and I was just feeling really out of my depth, like a fish out of water. And I remember there was this one little cafe on the corner, and I said, all right, I'm just gonna go in here. I'm going to just sit down. I had tears streaming down my face, and I blurted out some of the only Italian that I knew in this little cafe. And I just said, parli inglese, because it was like that sheer desperation of just like seeking familiarity and seeking someone that could understand me. And you know, she had the typical reply like un po', like poco poco. And I just sat down in the corner of this cafe, and I was like, oh my God, I just can't imagine spending a year here and feeling so uncomfortable and so out of my depth and out of my comfort zone, more so than I ever had in my life. And it was just that first day, and I felt just so overwhelmed with everything, and I didn't know how I was gonna get through it. But obviously it's so dramatic looking back now, but in the moment, that's exactly how I was feeling. And all I wanted to do was just go home and go back to my comfort zone. And I really had to give myself a pep talk in that moment and just say, Kaija, like, pull yourself out of it. Like, you're in this amazing new country. You have all of these amazing opportunities lying right ahead of you. And though I couldn't see them in that moment, it wasn't until later that I looked back, and I was so grateful for that, that experience and that moment of like desperation and, I don't know, yeah, that moment of desperation and just like wanting to go back to my comfort zone. It wasn't until later that I was like, I realized how much I had grown and how much I had mentally developed into a completely different version of myself. And yeah, I mean, that's how it emerged for me initially. There were little things that came along the way as well, but just initially, that was the first thing that I remember. That was my first memory of Milan and arriving in Milan, this new country. And yeah, so looking back, it's the culture clash that kind of forces you to change your mindset. And it depends how you look at it, because you know, a lot of people might look at it in a pessimistic way and just compare it to their country and just think, you know, why aren't they like me, or why don't they understand me or what I do? And you just have to really get out of your own head, get out of your own world, and realize that you're not in your country anymore and you're in another completely different country, and that that's okay and that's equally as amazing. So yeah, I think just like keeping yourself open-minded is the most important thing when it comes to culture clash, and not like getting your guard up or getting angry or frustrated. Just let it come and let it be a learning opportunity and a growth opportunity, because you will get things wrong and that's okay. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is dealing with loneliness, because this is something that can come from the feeling of like not belonging, the feeling of being a foreigner in a completely different place and you're the one that's different. And I spent my whole life, you know, I haven't really left Australia ever. I mean, I went overseas to New Zealand when I was really little, and then I went to America for 3 weeks, but I'd never left Australia for more than 3 weeks. And here I was in this new country in Italy, on the other side of the world. Like, I don't think you can get further away from Australia. And yeah, I felt really lonely. And I think a lot of this, as I was talking about before, has to do with your mindset. And I think it's only natural to feel like this when you're coming from a completely different country, and you're obviously the one that's different, and you're the one that has to adapt to this new life. In a lot of ways, you know, you can feel like you're losing a part of yourself and losing a part of your identity and your ability to express the version of yourself that you once knew and that, you know, you've been familiar with your whole life. Because especially this is one thing that I found when I didn't know the language. I didn't know any of the language, and whenever you're speaking in your second language or a language that is foreign to you, you're obviously not going to be able to express yourself in the same way that you would in your home language, because, you know, you don't have your, like, people don't understand your sarcasm, or you don't have the words to express the sarcasm as you would in your home country. It's like different senses of humor and different customs. Like, certain things might be rude in this new culture as opposed to yours. And these are all things that you need to be aware of, and these are all things that you need to that can be quite overwhelming if you're not prepared, and if you don't have an open mind and things like that. So I remember in Milan, I was really, really lucky because there are a lot of people who can speak English. But I remember the first time that I visited the south of Italy in Basilicata, I was staying with my boyfriend's family and I was meeting all his friends. And none of his family speaks any English. None of his friends, or like maybe one or two of them, speak a little bit of English, but mostly they just speak in dialect. And the thing with dialect as well is that even if you do know Italian, some of the regional dialects are so different, and they kind of are a language in and of themselves. So it can be really difficult, even if you do know Italian, to feel like you fit in. And you kind of at times feel like you're losing yourself and like you've lost a part of yourself, and it's really frustrating because you really want to show your whole personality and your whole self, but there's this thing that's holding you back. And unless you really push yourself out of your comfort zone and you just let everything come to you, and you just literally just surrender, just let go of your insecurities and just let yourself be, and let yourself soak in all of these new things around you, these new languages and people and personalities and culture, and it's just everything. And it can be really overwhelming all at once, because oftentimes you feel like you always have to be like just acutely aware of everything and always mentally switched on, and that can be really draining at times, and it can be really exhausting. But I feel like you can either go one of two directions. So you can let it steer you in one direction, which is the part which absolutely consumes you and controls you, and you can, you know, spiral down this negative spiral in your mind and just go into your little shell and be too scared to come out and say anything. Or you can let it go the other way and let your point of difference be the novelty that everyone, you know, is drawn to, and be really open and don't worry about getting things wrong. Like, it doesn't matter if you're not fluent in the language. You just have to put yourself into their shoes. And, you know, if you had a foreign person come to your country, say from Europe or something, and they didn't speak much English, but they made the most of the English that they did speak, and it becomes like a real novelty for you, because it's the locals that then want to like take you under their wing and teach you all that they know, and really bring you into their culture if you're open to it. But if you're not, if you close yourself off and you don't say anything, and you're just in this mindset where you're too scared to let anything go or get things wrong, then you're really not going to be able to immerse yourself as you want to. And of course you want to, like, you want to be able to mesh and blend and make friends and experience this new way of life. But if you're so closed off in yourself and you're so embarrassed to get things wrong, that's just never gonna happen. So yeah, like I said, you can go one of two ways. Choose the latter, it's always better. And honestly, if you just like act confident, and you're even confident in getting things wrong, it can be really fun. It can be, you know, a little bit embarrassing at first, but there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Honestly, it's just, it can be really fun. It can be whatever you make of it, really. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is settling into life. And as I said before, I spoke about in my previous video about the, you know, financial cost of moving to Italy, and I didn't really touch on much mentally, how it affects you mentally, and all of the things that kind of you have to prepare for in your mind, because that can be oftentimes a lot heavier than, you know, the tasks that you have to do in the first couple of weeks of moving to a new country. So I remember when I arrived, I just had this mentality that I had to get everything done in like one day or the first few days. And I was completely forgetting that, you know, I'd booked an Airbnb for 1 month, and even though I didn't have a permanent place to live, I had, you know, resources at my fingertips that I just wasn't taking advantage of in those first couple of days. I just thought to myself, oh my God, I'm alone and no one can help me. And I just thought I had to get everything done like right away. And I was forgetting that I had all of these things around me that I could reach out for help and, you know, ask for help, ask people. I was at a university and I had a buddy, because I signed up to this buddy program that my university offered, and I reached out to him and he helped me like with so many things, like getting my metro card, and even for that, it's like a whole ordeal in and of itself. You have to like provide all these details, and I didn't know much Italian, and it was just like a massive hassle. And even like with the post office, like the permesso di soggiorno, it's a completely different experience than the post office in Australia. And I didn't even know, like, it's those little things that you don't expect that kind of get in the way. Like, it would seem like a simple task to go to the post office, but then you realize that it's a completely different thing, and you can't even work out like how to get a ticket for the post office. And it's just like so disorientating, and yeah, it can be really overwhelming. But I think just reminding yourself that there is help available if you reach out and you seek it out for yourself. But again, if you just let yourself be closed off and think that you just have to do everything and you put the weight of the world on your shoulders, then the weight of the world is going to be on your shoulders. So you don't have to get everything done right away. There's help available, and just try not to stress about those little things, because oftentimes as well, the answer is on Google. The answer is in the person walking down the street next to you. Like, it's a lot, but it's not at the same time. Like, people want to help you when you ask for help. People want to give you help and assistance, and you know, people are around. People aren't as rude or shut off as you may think as a foreigner. When you remind yourself of these things, I find that it just takes the burden off you mentally and gives you so much more mental freedom and space to actually settle into your life and settle into the amazing new city that you find yourself in, or the amazing new country and culture that you find yourself in. So just keep reminding yourself that you don't have to get everything done right now. Like, you've got time and everything will be okay. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is finding confidence and finding your feet. And a lot of this for me, as I touched on before, was when I started learning the language and I started becoming, you know, more confident and comfortable in speaking the language. And I did learn a little bit at university before I came to Italy, so I was quite familiar with the grammatical side of Italian, but it was mainly just the conversational elements and the vocabulary, and actually gaining confidence to speak the language, because I feel like it's one thing to study it and to do like exams in grammar and listening tasks and comprehensions and things like that. But when you're in a real life scenario and you're speaking to real Italians, you know, it's a whole different experience. So I think once you break out of that first initial bubble and you jump over that first hurdle, and just allow yourself, like I said before, to get things wrong, and you break through that barrier, you'll find that your language just gets better and better, and you'll find that you want to practice more and more, because it can be really scary, that initial like starting to speak Italian. I remember the first time that I didn't go into a cafe and say parli inglese, and instead I actually just said posso avere un caffè per favore, or whatever, like whatever it is. And you realize like those little milestones in yourself gaining that confidence over time. So yeah, I mean, that's how I gained confidence. I found that just speaking and just getting over my own insecurities and my own ego, honestly, it sets you so free. And I couldn't recommend that more. So I really hope this video was helpful to you guys and you took something from it. It helps you settle into a new city or new country, wherever you are in the world. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in the next video. Bye.